Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm the King, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we are talking about something that is crazy, and you guys can see on screen, it is the Bloodlust Experiment. So, long story short, Bloodlust is going to be removed. So, let's go ahead and read exactly what they created in their post and then talk about this and give our opinions. It says, this weekend, Bloodlust will be temporarily disabled on the live version of the game. Why? Bloodlust was originally introduced as a means to help the killer catch up with survivors at strong window loops. At the time, these loops were safe enough for the survivor would gain a significant amount of distance each time they vaulted the window, making it impossible for the killer to catch up with them. Since then, we have made great strides in identifying these loops and tweaking them to avoid these situations. As a result, Bloodlust has become a contentious mechanic where many believe it's no longer necessary. In order to better understand the effect of Bloodlust on the game in 2020, we will be disabling the mechanic on PC and consoles for the course of this weekend. This will allow us to gather feedback and data on Bloodlust and see what kinds of effects it has on matches in a real-world scenario. 1. November 20th, 11 AM, Bloodlust is disabled. November 23rd at 11 AM, Bloodlust is re-enabled. Disclaimer: this test only disables the Bloodlust mechanic. References to Bloodlust will still appear in the game, and Beasts of Prey will not be active as a result. We would like to stress that this experiment is purely to gather data. No further plans for Bloodlust is set in stone at this time. So, what are my thoughts on this entire Bloodlust thing? You know, what am I thinking with the whole Bloodlust experiment? Do I think it's good? Do I think it's bad? I think it's a good experiment, you know, to understand what Bloodlust does in 2020 as what they're going for, so we can know how much Bloodlust actually affects the game. And if this goes on forward, people are going to have to adjust to stop relying on Bloodlust and just W game against survivors, figuring out how to get better and rely on actual mind games and things like that. The only thing that I'm concerned about with this, and I think a lot of you guys would probably be concerned with too if you are a killer main or even in general, is that some of the maps are still pretty strong when it comes down to loops. Think about the Asylum, where you can just loop all day and the killer can't really do much. Or even a map like Haddonfield. You know, there are some maps that are still going to be a little bit survivor-sided, and there's places that would rely on Bloodlust, and because it's not in the game, you won't really be able to do much about it. But of course, that's why we have this test that's going on, and there's surely to be collecting a lot of data when it comes down to this, because everybody's going to be playing. And that's when we're actually going to get good enough feedback on if this should be pushed out. Now, a lot of people are on the fence about this, as you can tell. If you play Killer, for the most part, most people are like, hey, you need to fix the maps first before we do a test like this. Some killers are saying that Bloodlust is an old mechanic that, you know, doesn't need to be in the game anymore, and if you're a good killer, you won't rely on it. To an extent, I agree with that claim as well. But I also think that some of the maps, some of the loops need to be adjusted and reworked in order for the killer to do better. Personally, my chases don't go up to Bloodlust. You know, at most, I would get Bloodlust 1, and by then, the chase would be over regardless. So I don't think it's too much of a hefty change. But there are some instances where I do chase a survivor and I just can't catch him because the loops are too strong. Now on the flip side, survivors are rejoicing. You know, this is a mechanic that a lot of people, especially some of the less experienced killers, relied on. Not breaking their pallet and continuing to loop around the survivor, forcing the survivor to go down and just wasting time on both sides. By the time that gens are popped, survivor goes down, but at what cost? So on the survivor side, they're pretty happy about this. A lot of survivors have been asking for this for a very, very long time, and I don't think there's any or much survivors that are against this change, unless there's some of those survivors, which I have seen, that, you know, are concerned about the loops as well on some of the maps, and basically telling survivors to get good. So this is a pretty interesting test that they're doing. Now, we know behavior. We know the kind of test that they put in play, and then they make crazy changes later on. We noticed when they changed working on generators together, and then they had the ruin change, you know? So they could just be testing this, and as I said, they don't have any plans for it in the future. If it goes well, removing it, but then putting in something else, like the start game mechanic that we've been hearing about from such a long time ago. So we never really know what's up DBD sleeves on this whole Bloodlust experiment, but you guys can take a look at it and actually play with it on both sides this weekend. So that is going to be pretty damn fun. We're going to see how much does Bloodlust really affect gameplay in 2020. That, ladies and gentlemen, is going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you guys did enjoy. I'm excited to see what's going to come out of this Bloodlust experiment. We're going to be playing this ourselves once it comes out, and we'll see how we do and how we perform after a set amount of games. It's definitely going to be interesting, to say the least. As always, I'm the King. I tip my crown to you guys, and we'll see you in the fog.